One of the biggest mysteries in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is the mysterious disappearance of Gavin. Throughout 6 separate encounters during the narrative, both Arthur and John encounter a wandering individual named Nigel, who's searching for his friend. Lost, scared, and alone, Nigel traverses the world for his friend, all to no avail. And in today's video, on a topic that I've yet to cover myself, we're going to be delving deep into the mystery to see if we can uncover the truth behind the missing individual. Welcome to the video. You're listening to Phil of Filbee Gaming. If you enjoy the following, you all know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed already, after watching, please consider doing so. Without further delay, let's begin with today's content. The truth of the disappearance of Gavin. So to tell this story, we must start at the beginning. Throughout the fictional setting of Red Dead Redemption 2, a wandering Englishman, we later learn to be called Nigel, can be encountered a total of 6 times, 4 during the primary narrative, plus a further 2 in the epilogue portion. I'll be showcasing each interaction with narrative in between before we draw our final conclusion and theories, no matter how far-fetched they may be. Nigel can be encountered in the likes of Rhodes, Beaver's Hollow, Tall Trees or Blackwater, but can have a continued encounter in a repeated vicinity, something of which I didn't realise until I began recordings for this video. For example, I encountered Nigel for the first and third time, both in the town of Rhodes. But regardless, let's continue on with the initial introduction.
Hey, I'm looking for my friend. Out of the way!
Gavin! Gavin! Where the hell are you?
Hello.
Listen, have you seen... I'm looking for my friend, Gavin.
I don't know any Gavins, I'm afraid.
English bloke. Lovely fella. He went missing and now I'm all alone.
Good luck.
That's too bad. Gavin!
So the original encounter doesn't really tell us anything other than what we've already discussed, so let's move on over to the second.
Hello, mister.
Have you seen Gavin?
You still haven't found him?
Nope, but I won't give up. He's lost. One morning, I just woke up and he wasn't there. Someone must have taken it.
Maybe he just left.
Gavin? No. No. We were best mates. I mean, really, best mates. He'd never leave me. Never. Gavin! Oh, I am so worried. Gav! 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 Where are you? Where are you?
So by the second encounter, Nigel has already begun to display signs of paranoia, believing that Gavin wouldn't just up and leave without telling him, stating that someone must have kidnapped him instead. Later meeting him for a third time, Nigel seems to be reminiscing on the good old times he had with Gavin, almost as if he's unwilling to accept that he may never see his friend again.
Evening.
Please, tell me you've seen Gavin.
I don't even know what he looks like.
Big bloke. Cockney. Londoner. Hilarious. Oh, we've had such times, me and Gav.
No, sorry. I've yet to meet any hilarious Londoners.
Oh, he's the best. Gavin!
Finding Nigel in the city of Saint-Denis, Arthur encounters him for the last time himself.
Someone must have seen an Englishman. Really funny he is.
Morning to you.
This is ridiculous, mate.
You're telling me. Might be time to call it quits.
You what? Have you gone mad? I love that boy. Big bloody dope that he is. No, No, I'll find him. He's probably just off on a spree if I know Gav.
Well, good luck.
So despite Arthur's pleas for him to accept his friend's fate, Nigel is still determined to continue his search. It's not until around 8 years later, whilst playing as John Marston, that we encounter Nigel for the final 2 times. His appearance is much more dishevelled than previous, and it will be apparent that Nigel has focused on nothing but finding his friend.
I'm looking for my friend, Gavin. For Gavin.
Has he been gone long?
Yeah. Few years. Few bloody years. I can't remember what he looks like. I'm looking for him, but I don't know who he is.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I've wasted my life. Looking. I looked, but I never saw. I saw nothing. Gavin!
Good luck.
Gavin! Oh, I am so worried.
At this point, Nigel has been searching for his friend Gavin for almost a decade and still can't fathom the fact that he may be gone forever. He's beginning to display the signs of a deranged individual who's mentally declined into a shell of his former self. We then have the final interaction with Nigel.
Oh, I remember you. Listen, have you seen,
Gavin? You still on this?
Yeah. It's turned into a right bloody rigmarole. I told the Trouble and Strife I'd be 6 months. It's been 7 or 8 years now.
I'd have stopped after 7 or 8 days.
Yeah, box his ears when I find him. No, I won't. I love that boy. Gavin! Where are you hiding?
Nigel, at this point, has completely lost it. We learn from the last encounter, where he mentions trouble and strife, that he left his wife behind back in England on the promise that he would only be absent for around 6 months or so. So having encountered all interactions, what can we determine? Well, upon Nigel's person, a letter can be found addressed to him from their mutual friend from back home, a gentleman named Tom. It reads as follows. Dear Nigel, I was so happy to hear from you. I cannot believe it, mate. My 2 friends, you and Gavin, boys I grew up with, now real rich and successful cowboys in America. That's incredible news. Well done, mate, seriously. Well done. I knew you and Gavin would find success over there. I mean, it stands to reason. A pair of boys from little old Maidenhead, Berkshire, now successful over in America. I might come join you myself, now that you 2 have done so well. Both of you rich and living in big mansions with servants and all them cattle. I remember when the height of your ambition was pretending you were a Londoner and seeing if you could fool those Scottish boys we met by the barracks. Funny thing is, Gavin never mentioned none of this in his letter, but he was always a bit of a quiet one, and I reckon you wrote after he did. Either way, I am made up for the pair of you, made up. Cowboys, millionaires, we miss you, especially your mum, since your dad passed on, but she told me she was so proud of you. Even Gavin's ma was happy. She said her usual piece about not thinking you had it in you, but she smiled and said she knew her boy would see sense or make sense of something eventually. Berkshire forever. Your pal, Tom. P.S. I saw that bloke Brian Gold the other day in the market. He said some real odd things about you, which I said weren't true. Betty's laughing on the other side of his face now. There's a few interesting details to take from this letter. Tom seems to believe that both Nigel and Gavin are successful cowboys, indicating they've potentially bought or built property, such as a ranch. But if that were the case, wouldn't Nigel have the funds to hire detectives such as the Pinkertons to assist him in tracking down his friend? Another interesting point is where Tom refers to Nigel playing fantasy and pretending to be a Londoner, something we'll come back to. Tom also mentions that Gavin never mentioned anything about his or Nigel's success in the United States. Is this indicating that Nigel is continuing to play dress-up, pretending to be something that he actually isn't? Tom mentions about the family of the boys, referring to the passing of Nigel's father, but never mentions about Nigel's wife. Surely she would have been in contact with his family and friends. Was he ever actually married? And lastly, we have the mention of another gentleman named Brian Gold, who's been saying some odd things concerning Gavin. Although it's not stated as to what exactly was said, it must be significant enough for Tom to want to make Nigel aware that people were slandering him back home, even though he's on the other side of the world. But the entire point of this video was to see if we can figure out exactly what happened to Nigel's friend Gavin, so let's discuss some potential possibilities as well as some of the wildest and wackiest theories out there, beginning with the most probable, then somewhat unhinged and the downright outlandish. The most probable theory, this one stemming from Nigel mentioning that someone must have kidnapped Gavin in our second encounter, is that this may have been the work of the likes of the Murphy Brood, the Night Folk or the Skinner Brother factions. All three gangs have a reputation of kidnapping, later leading to torture before killing their victims mercilessly. Something such as this would be right up their street. And with Nigel travelling far and wide in search of Gavin, this could indicate that himself and his friends had travelled around, posing the theory that they could have crossed any of these factions at one point or another, in locations such as Roanoke Ridge or down south with the Skinners. We could also look at the possibility of Gavin's disappearance being the handiwork of Edmund Lowry Jr., a serial killer with a similar MO to that of the terrifying groups of individuals. One other more probable theory is that Gavin simply up and left the company of Nigel. We know from the letter written by their hometown friend, Tom, that Nigel has a history of being a bit of a fantasist, such as pretending to be a Londoner for kicks, and claiming to have made millions upon the ranches of the West, so it could be something as simple as that. Gavin had just had enough. In said letter, in which we find a lot of information about the pair, there's an interesting fact about this. Originally, the letter, when stored in the game files, was referred to as a restraining order. Now oddly, the original file, before later being altered to the letter from Tom, was actually to provide Nigel protection from Gavin. This could relate to Tom talking about Brian Gold, which he states that Brian was saying some funny things about Nigel. Is this referencing that Nigel and Gavin were more than just friends? Words used to covertly talk about one's sexual preferences during those days was a common thing. We see this in Bill Williamson's discharge letter from his time in the military, where he was accused of deviancy, a code word for homosexuality. But as this file was altered, it's basically just guesswork. One of the more outlandish theories that is making the rounds is that Gavin was never real. This is a popular stretch of the imagination, but it could explain a whole lot. Nigel is being proven to be delusional, playing dress up and pretending he's something he's not. A fantasist at the very least. Some believe that Nigel made up the character of Gavin, similar to how a child would an imaginary friend. With Nigel being somewhat the talk of the town back home, he may have fled to the US to continue living in a fantasy world, a world in which only he understood. But loneliness soon reared its ugly head, and Nigel concocted the notion of a best friend, someone he could talk to. But what of the letter mentioning both men? Well, let's think for a moment. Why was the letter from Tom not addressed to both Nigel and Gavin? They were all apparently friends. Is there a possibility that Nigel was the one to address the letter to himself in order to keep the facade alive in his own mind? Was the notion of reality too much for him to handle? Another popular theory is that Gavin was in fact real and that his best friend Nigel had killed him. This derives from the letter informing Nigel that there were rumours of him being funny, as discussed earlier. Tom may have wanted a relationship with Nigel, but once more, during these days of the Old West, homosexuality was almost seen as a crime in the eyes of bigoted idiots. Nigel may have feared being perceived in this way greatly, hence the original restraining order against Gavin, and killed him out of fear. This could have easily altered Nigel's mental state, leading to conditions such as trauma-induced psychosis, post-traumatic stress disorder, or even borderline personality, conditions which are much more treatable today than during the late 19th century. This could also refer back to the notion that Gavin was never real, but instead of being a figment of Nigel's imagination, the persona of his friend was actually another version of Nigel, a split personality disorder of sorts. This could explain why Nigel was searching for him so hard. He wanted that happy-go-lucky character back in his mind. One truly out there theory, which seems to have circulated, something of which I've even covered myself previously, is as follows. Gavin was involved in an alien-chasing cult. We know full well that there's an alien presence in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2, one particular encounter being relevant to this theory. Heading to the abandoned structure of Hans Bethel, the player can uncover the remains of an alien cultist following, who have all perished by apparent self-poisoning. but if we look closely at the floorboards in front of the head table, the formation almost looks like it spells out a name. That name, Gavin. Did Gavin join this cult? Is he one of the poor souls who spent their final moments awaiting the arrival of the unknown? Did he poison himself as an offering to the extraterrestrial? Who knows? So what do you think the truth behind the mystery of Gavin actually is? Personally, I believe he simply fled the erratic behaviour of Nigel and headed back to England, but unfortunately Nigel couldn't fathom this concept and tried to continue his search for his friend. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. If you enjoyed what you saw today, you all know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. If you wish to see a take on any particular topic or person in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2, be sure to note that down too. Thank you all for watching. You've been listening to Phil of Filbee Gaming, and I'll see you in the next video.